maybe I should be buying, because if everybody else is scared to buy, what's going to happen? Yeah, it's going to offer me an opportunity to get in the door when otherwise maybe I wouldn't be able to. I got into a Twitter space not too long ago, and it was with people that are those like doomsday style of people, right? And
I'm guessing you didn't do too well in this.
No, you know what? Like a lot of people were like asking me questions.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
Yeah, because one guy was like, well, like, how do you even know anything about, like, you're probably some guy that just started investing like a couple years ago and just riding the wave. I'm like, no, motherfucker. Like, I come from the Great Recession. And then somebody was like, well, the Great Recession didn't happen in Canada. And I'm like, okay, listen, you need to understand that we're from Windsor. I started in Windsor, and the Great Recession took down the automotive industry in Windsor, which is basically the industry here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when that happened, Windsor was a fucking ghost town. And so I know that's why I always tell you, like, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not as, I always remember the start, and I remember how volatile it was. People think that this is bad right now. Windsor was like way worse off back then. Okay. But I ended up getting in there, and I was talking to these guys, and I'm like, why do you guys always just fucking complain? Like I literally said this. I was like, why? All I hear all the time, all I hear is like complaining. Oh, this is happening in the housing market. This is the government's doing, and I'm like, figure out how to leverage what's happening here, okay? And go the other way. Like whenever this is why I pay attention to like what's going on politically. I want to know what's going on politically and what's being perpetuated out there, so I can do the opposite.
1,000%.
Okay, like everybody's going crazy about the housing market. Everybody's like, oh, the shit's gonna go nuts or it's gonna collapse. Like I'm running towards it, right? Because what's that quote by Warren Buffett? When people are greedy, be fearful, and when people are fearful, be greedy. That's an amazing quote. That's exactly how I have approached everything. Everything. I have done literally the opposite. The 2 times I've made the most money on any kind of property purchase that I've ever done was, number 1, during the 2008 Great Recession, and then number 2, during the first 6 months of COVID, and then number 3, during about maybe like 6 months to a year after that. When everybody was the most fearful and confused in the market. Those are the three times that I've made the most money on any property I've ever purchased. Period. Okay? So I went in there and I was like, why don't we like talk about what we're going to do? And then people were like, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, first of all, you guys in your fucking graphs all the time, okay? like you guys aren't going to solve, like, what do you guys think you're going to do? Like, okay, fine. Like, all of this, like, I've never seen so many graphs in my entire fucking life. It's insane, number 1. And then they're like, well, you need to understand, like, macroeconomics to make the right decisions. And I'm like, I'm not saying that macroeconomics aren't important. What I'm saying is you can't control macroeconomics, okay? And what's happening on a macro level doesn't necessarily affect your local real estate market as a whole. So at best, it's going to shift maybe rates and stuff like that, but build in the risk with the rate, right? Like, I don't understand how people are so fixated on macroeconomics all the time. What's the quote by fucking, was it Charlie Munger about macroeconomics, or Warren Buffett?
Yeah.
What is it? They just don't even focus on it?
Charlie and I spend 0 time on macroeconomics. They don't make any decisions off macro.
Yeah, because you can't control it. They focus on the strength and the fundamentals of the businesses that they're buying. Yeah. Period.
Number 1, you can't control it. Yeah. Number 2, if you zoom out too far, it's terrifying because there's infinite whatever. Exactly. And number 3, the macroeconomics are changing all the time.
Exactly.
So the story today, if they drop rates 0.5% tomorrow, throw the macroeconomics out the window. The stock market's going up. The real estate market's going up. You can't predict the next move at all these various levels for every country around the world. It's a global economy. It's pointless. It's ultimately pointless.
Exactly. So you have to buy based off of fundamentals.
Yes.
And your and location.
Yeah.
Fundamentals of real estate and the location. That's what I base all my decisions off of.
Yeah. So
I guarantee I'm gonna get into this. I guarantee, and I've asked a few people this before. How much property do you own? And what's the answer? It's fucking zero. Or it's, oh, I own 2 houses. Like, I'm not saying that that's not, that's not something, to not be proud of. That's not what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, I have seen what macroeconomic analysis constantly does to people because I have people in my circle that focus on that type of shit. And they own 1 unit compared to my hundreds. Okay? And
guys, this is so important.
Like, you can't, this conversation you can make any you can make any point in time, any market, and any deal look bad. I can make whatever I want look bad. But I could also zoom in and make whatever I want look good based off fundamentals and location, which is way more important, and exactly how people scale their portfolios. The way that, you and I discuss that is the goal, where there's billions of dollars in holdings or hundreds of millions of dollars in holdings or whatever. And exactly how I've scaled my portfolio is not focusing on that bullshit.
So true.
It's too crazy.
It's insane.
Like you said, you can't control it. It makes a good argument for someone not to make moves and remain inactive.
So true.
Right?
Justification.
It justifies them to not do anything. Whether that's playing into their fear of failure, their fear of success, or
which is equally as
bad.
Troubling. Yeah.
And it allows them to justify playing into their lack of self-confidence in what they're actually even doing.
So true.
You have to let go.
Yeah.
These guys that are at the top of the food chain, I promise you, they're not looking at it the same way that everybody else is. I will say this. The one thing that I have noticed about, and I've had discussions with a few billionaires, and very rich people. The one thing that I've taken away from the discussions that I've had from ultra rich and wealthy people is that they tend to simplify the world around them, not complicate it.
Love this.
And that's key, man. And that's something that I took away. And I try to simplify everything that I do, because when you have a lot going on, when you have these big conglomerates or you have these big businesses, even like, Canadian Protein on the supplement company and shit like that, you have to simplify it. And what happened? I'll give you an example. Canadian Protein, what do? We simplified the business. Now we're increasing revenue year over year by 40 to 50%. Do you know what that's going to do to the value of the business? Like, I have in my fucking handles like $100 million, like, e-com net worth or whatever. Like, it's like double now.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Because of why? Because of simplification.
What's an example of a couple simplification things?
So instead of me, I'll give you a couple ideas, a couple things that I've actually witnessed as being my own pitfalls in business. Number one, I tend to get bored easy. All right, like I get, that I fucking squirrel, like, right? You always fucking joke around with me, right? But I have this dire need to constantly create shit. Okay, I've stopped doing that, and then when I stop doing that and I focus on what I have going on now, like Canadian Protein, Coachwood Capital, what happens? It expands. And it gets to new levels, right? So the focusing and making things more simple and stop spreading myself so thin it has been a massive advantage.
Focusing on like the fundamentals.
Focusing on the fundamentals
customer
of
service.
What got me here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, with respect to Canadian Protein, we're not focusing on bringing so many SKUs in-house anymore. We're not focusing on having 20 flavors always in stock. What we're doing is we're focusing on having the best-selling flavors in stock all the time, so that when someone comes to the website, they're not looking for the flavor that they want, that they expect to be in stock, waiting to purchase, or going somewhere else that does have that type of flavor. We're scaling back the offerings and focusing on keeping the best-selling SKUs in stock all the time. Because when you have too many things going on at once, what we found was we were consistently running out of stock. There was too many SKUs. People get upset. They bounce. They go elsewhere to buy their products. And for me, I was always like, well, I want to be the one-stop shop. Well, you can be the one-stop shop because somebody that's coming in through your store, there's two types of buyers. Number one, there's going to be three types of buyers. Number one, there's going to be the unflavored buyer that doesn't want any kind of flavoring, any kind of excipients in their product. Number two, they're going to be the vanilla guy, okay? Or they're going to be the chocolate guy, right? So it's a very simplistic, now we keep more flavors than that in stock, but it's a very simplistic idea of keeping the best sellers in stock all the time, right? And we don't want to get into a position where we're running out of stock on those types of flavors because it reduces the conversion rate.
Yeah.
So simplifying that business, simplifying customer service, bringing in automation to make things run more smooth, even simplifying the roles for people, right? Where, say for example, we have multiple people in customer service. Well, they all used to share the same responsibilities across multiple people. Now one person has one responsibility. Now if something happens with respect to that one task, we know exactly who to go to. It simplifies everything. Simplifying the world around you is key if you want to scale your success. Absolutely key.
Okay, so simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
100%.
That's one of my favorite quotes. How do you apply this simplicity to real estate investing?
You
making money, right? Whatever.
Yeah, you have to simplify it. So again, and this is something that I fucking know you used to make fun of me for. You used to fucking chirp the fuck out of me when I used to say this. I swear by this. Buy property that you would live in. End of story.
I don't think I ever made fun of you.
You fucking did. You're like, this is too simple. For sure.
I never said it's too simple.
No, you fucking did.
No, what I said was you said you were buying stuff in areas where I know you wouldn't live. That's all.
Now, listen, I'm not like, I do have real estate that I would not live in, but there's intrinsic value why I own that real estate because next door there's $100 million project going up or whatever, like that bullshit you sold me on Crawford and University. So
$250 a unit. Yeah,
exactly.
I'll buy it off.
Not even $250 a unit. I bought that shit for like $160 a unit.
Okay, well I'll buy them off you now for $160.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That was a good buy. But but I wouldn't live there. So for me, when I buy real estate in locations based on the fundamental sub-market analysis and market analysis. And that means I want to see job growth. I want to see population growth. I want to see places where people want to be.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, exactly. I want to see, another thing that I like to consider is how far is a Starbucks from the property, right? I want to see a Starbucks within a 5-mile radius of the property.
Love it.
And the reason why I want to see that is because Starbucks already did a lot of the sub-market analysis for you.
1,000%.
They already know. There's a certain clientele that goes to
1,000%.
Starbucks.
Here's the problem with what you're saying.
It's too simple.
Exactly. And if you try to tell people this, if you try to tell people, hey, there's a Starbucks down the street, the numbers make sense, the location's great, the population's growing, blah, 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 they're going to say, show me the macroeconomics of whatever. Show me charts. Show me whatever. A bunch of they're just going to overcomplicate it. Yeah. And the sad thing is, if you come in with all that crazy information, it actually, in a way, people love it more.
Yeah, you'll never buy anything.
Yeah, you'll just
fucking never buy anything.
Like macroeconomics and macro politics, people get so caught up on macro politics. All I care about, what is my political community in my local market that I'm investing in, right? Like, are they bringing jobs in here? People are so focused on like who got elected in UK and like all this crazy stuff that does not impact my local hyper local real estate market. Is absolutely insane. Yeah, it's really quite simple. Yeah. Yet here we are.
And the reason why I say buy property that you would live in is because that accomplishes all of the intrinsic things that we're talking about. Is the rent affordable? Is like,
that's a good point,
right? Like seriously, like is the rent affordable? Is there transportation? Is it easy to commute?
Do you feel safe?
What's the weather like? Do you feel safe?
Are the units nice?
Are the exactly
Are they spacious?
Exactly. What else can we talk about? Like, what's the amenities in the local area? Like if you want to live there as a landlord, you're probably you're going to be able to sift through these variables fairly easily. Walk the property if you'd want to remember Bayview Palms. Like they're within a 3-mile, not even within walking distance. There's an LA Fitness, there's a Whole Foods, and a fucking Starbucks. Like, enough said.
$1 million homes all around.
Exactly, $1 million homes all around. The water is 5 minutes to the beach. Like I would live there. The place that we have under contract in Melbourne, Florida right now, I would live there.
100%.
Like that.
Now,
I know that that's a simplistic way of looking at real estate, but the back end of you subconsciously thinking to yourself, "Oh, I would live here." It wipes out all of the variables and it accomplishes
here's what
all
it does.
the analysis you need to know.
At what point, Dan, do you bring macroeconomics into this equation?
I don't, obviously.
Exactly. That's the point. At no point in our conversation is it what's happening macroeconomically and where our interest rate's going to be in 3 years.
Yeah,
because you're going to fix the debt or build it into the model.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's what I do is... Okay, so say for example, if there's a Fed meeting next week and the consensus is that they're going to raise rates at 1%, I'll build that into the underwriting model at, if the rates are 5% and they're going to 6%, if the deal doesn't work at 6%, then I don't do the fucking deal. It's just as simple as that because the risk is real, right? And then here's what I'll do then at that point. If the 6% rate increase in the model doesn't work, then I'll ask for a reduction in price. Simple. End of story. Now guess what happens? If they don't take the reduction in price, I don't do the fucking deal.
Now here's the problem. This is actually, it dawned on me. This is the actual real problem with macro, is that it's so scary that to these people that focus on macro, the world is ending and that deal is going to zero, and that whole submarket, they're all going to lose their jobs. Nobody's going to be able to afford to rent, and and the housing market around there is going to collapse, and that property is going to be worth 50% less. Yeah. And it's all imminent.
Yeah.
So how can you operate and pull the trigger when the numbers work, the location is great, the fundamentals are solid, but macro is always terrifying you? Listen, you can't pull the trigger.
I will say this. I don't know how I feel about this, but again, I feel one of the things that I do in life is I treat everything like a test, like women, business, everything, doesn't matter. The shit that I see online. I feel like right now we're being tested. I think that the negativity and the volatility that's being pushed in the market right now is a test, and it's a way for the powers that be to scare people and investors into buying rental properties, so that maybe it gives a little bit of an option to the guys that want to buy for their principal residences, right? Nonetheless, regardless of what it is, I'm focusing on like the opposite. If I see
to buy rental properties or to sell them,
to not buy rental properties, to not buy. Like I feel like
I like this.
I feel like it's and here's the thing, even if that's not the reason, approaching it as like you're being tested. Okay, it changes your perspective of okay, well, are you going to give in? Or are you going to do something about it and take advantage of it and leverage the situation? That's the way that I'm thinking of it right now, is that, okay, the world is scaring you into real estate, or scaring you out of real estate investing. If the world seems to be scaring you out of real estate investing, if all these guys are throwing out all these charts and these charts are being made by economists and all this stuff, right? If these charts are being perpetuated to try to potentially scare people out of buying, is there a reason for that? Maybe I should be buying, because if everybody else is scared to buy, what's going to happen? Yeah, it's going to offer me an opportunity to get in the door when otherwise maybe I wouldn't be able to.
It's not just the people on Twitter. It's really the mass media. Look at what the mass media is doing. Should tell you
huge.
What you should not be doing.
That's why people, like, again, I made a tweet about this, but a lot of people say, like, hey, Dan, a lot of people tell me, like, oh, don't focus on the negative and don't watch the news and this and that. Like, I actually like watching the news so I could fucking figure out what's going on and then do the exact opposite. Seriously.
Tell me what you think about this quote.
Yeah.
The middle class is kept in subjection by a steady dose of fear.
For sure. Just, of course.
Steady. Nonstop. Yeah. Every day, every week, every month.
The majority of people are fearful people. They have a fearful mindset.
They're being dosed with fear by the media continuously. Nonstop, forever. Yeah. And people like you and I think we've learned to, like, not really. It doesn't scare me anymore.
What are you going to do with it? Like, what are you going to do? You going to turtle?
Yeah.
Like you can't, like, exactly like what we're talking about. The point is,
you're not going to
get anywhere.
It's not real.
Yeah.
It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? You pull back the curtain and it's just a game. It's just a little puppet trying to pull the strings. But the
fucking
people,
little asshole with a monkey back there.
Right. But people are being held as puppets on strings because of fear.
Yeah.
And other people are like, other wealthy people and successful people. They're just, you can't puppet them. They don't care.